What's up, Pete?
Excuse me.
Oh, hey.
What a way to start. What a way to start. Keep going with the intro, Tony.
Okay, yeah. Welcome. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of TTBurger, Burgers and Fries Game Talk with a Shake. And today we are on episode 7 here, and we've already talked about gaming consoles and everything like that. But today we're gonna be doing something a little different, a little twist here to this, which is something that I never thought I'd ever be talking about. But I have two people joining me for this. Joining me first is my co-host.
That is me. I am Grim Monolith. I am an astronomer and a programmer and a teacher in real life and online. I am the editor for Vera Dark and Dark Titan Enterprises, and I am here to talk games with TTBurger.
That's me, and also joining us is the Hyperactive Princess from the last few episodes.
Yep. The one that just did the burp earlier.
Yep, which I thought was a sneeze.
And today my shirt says good vibes only, so we'll just have good vibes only.
Yep, all the way from Canada is Sadet The Hyperactive Princess here once again, and us and me and Grim from the United States of America, and we are here talking about something I never thought I'd ever talk for on this channel. PC gaming, requested by Sadet The Hyperactive Princess and our friend MF217 who was unable to join, and our friend Link, who's actually at least started doing some stream stuff, which won't be joining us for a while, but he'll always be a member of the podcast anytime for sure. And now, me personally, as those of you already know, I am not big into PC gaming. I did play PC games in the past, but nowadays I prefer the consoles and stuff. Now, I know the consoles are not the best way to play PC ports, but still, I just prefer them over console versions over PC. Okay, you don't have to install and don't have weird controls or anything like that. You just play it right away with the controller and stuff, and that's what I like about it. Now, I remember playing like games on the floppy disk, like those Mickey Mouse learning games, and like those
games that you get from cereal boxes from back in the day.
Oh yes,
like seriously, some of those games were actually pretty fun.
Oh yeah, I got quite a few Carmen Sandiego games and stuff like that, like Carmen Sandiego Math Detective, War Detective, and Where in Time Stretch and all that stuff. Yeah, like I used to be a big Carmen Sandiego fan back in the day, and yeah, so yeah, getting free game on a cereal box, yeah, who wouldn't go for that? And I remember.
And of course,
go ahead.
Of course, I'm a big RPG fan, as a bunch of us are here. But we all know we're kind of like the Western RPG, and RPGs in general got their start. They come from the computer side of gaming. That's where
gasp.
They do indeed. They come from the computer side of gaming.
Uh-huh.
So, and that's a big deal for me, and that's kind of, where my sort of gaming adventure started, basically a long, long time ago. Anyway,
Yeah.
keep going, Tony.
Yeah,
What you were
definitely. Because
saying.
like I remember the very first CD-ROM PC game I ever played. It was Myst, and I remember like my dad got it when we got our computer and stuff like that, and like it was pretty cool because like when I saw the box from Myst, I thought it was just like real day, real life or something like that and stuff. But even though it kind of was like that, yeah, because we did have the Myst games on the PC, but our PC had problems running them, so which is when we started playing them on the PlayStation. But I remember like the games I first played PC game wise were like a lot of like educational games because I was in first grade, like Jumpstart First Grade, Magic School Bus Inside the Human Body,
Edutainment.
yes, and Reader Rabbit, Math Rabbit. Of course, like mentioned, there was Myst, and we had other games too. But like not, and of course we had those games by Humongous like Putt-Putt and Buzzy the Knowledge Bug, Pajama Sam, and Freddy Fish. Yes, Freddy Fish, which was definitely probably my favorite series by Humongous, and I never played Spy Fox. I didn't know anything about that, but Freddy Fish, it was interesting learning that Freddy Fish was actually a female, not a male. You learned that Freddy Fish too, and we all thought Freddy was a boy. And yes, Sadet here, I actually was talking about this stuff to Sadet yesterday as it's recording, and she was surprised too. So yeah, I wasn't the one who was surprised there, but
As far as the edutainment goes, the edutainment I grew up on was like the original Oregon Trails and like Math Munchers, and I'm sure all of you have seen, various newer versions of edutainment
I
software.
have. Like, don't
similar to that. But I'm talking about the original Oregon Trail that was on the Apple II and the original Math Munchers that was on the Apple II. That's the type of edutainment stuff that I grew up on.
The only Oregon Trails I played were Oregon Trail 2 and Oregon Trail 4th Edition, so they were all the same game, just like that, but just that, when you talk about, edutainment, you also can't forget those games made by the Learning Company, like Treasure Mountain, Treasure Math Storm.
Yeah, and the games made by Borderbon. There was a lot of edutainment made by an old...
Broderbund.
Made by a company called Borderbond.
Yeah, Broderbund...
Oh, by the way, sorry to cut you guys off here, but I did a quick search on Steam, and 5 Freddy the Fish games are in here. The first, second, third, fourth, and fifth game.
I think there were only 5 of them that were made. Not counting the minigame, not counting the minigame ones that they had, but still, the main ones. Yeah,
the main games.
Yeah, I remember the minigame one where you had to collect this many number of worm doodles. That was just kind of okay, setting over and over. Okay.
Which is really interesting to see on Steam for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm assuming that those are all older titles, but they're up on Steam.
They
right?
are.
They are.
They are really old titles.
Yeah.
The one I've played was Freddy Fish 3, The Case of the Stolen Conch Shell.
Oh yeah. I played the first 2, the one with the kelp treasure chest, Grandma's kelp treasure chest, and the one with the haunted school, where the school's haunted by the ghost. Which I'm not gonna say who the ghost is because you know what? Fuck, I'm gonna say this because no one plays anymore. The ghost was the 2 sharks who wanted to steal the children's toys to give it to the boss, the Squid Father. Which was obvious because the way the ghost sounded, you knew what it was from the start. You as a kid.
Freddy the Fish 3 actually did it a little differently because they actually made it random on who the culprit is.
I remember that. Yeah, I saw a video of it on YouTube where it wasn't the sharks. I thought it was gonna be the sharks or something like that, but it wasn't the sharks at all. It was it wasn't the sharks at all. It was just like a random person there.
It's like out of these cast, one of them is the culprit.
It's like a game of Clue. It's like playing a game of Clue, the board game Clue.
Yeah.
Yeah, but of course, like I mentioned, we have those Learning Company games like Treasure Math Storm, Treasure Mountain, Treasure Cove, Ultimate Writing Creator Activity Center with Penny the Pen, and the Super Solver, Master of Mischief ones of course, there was also Outnumbered, Midnight Rescue, and Spellbound, which were which were for kids who were a little older, like 9 to 12 or so. I remember playing those. I loved playing the reading one the best because it was the easiest one, and the premise was pretty cool. Master Mischief and his cronies want to make the school disappear by putting invisible paint on it at midnight, and that was funny there. But there's been so many versions of those games with the mod with the technology and stuff.
Yeah, I believe it. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Mm-hmm, because
so besides edutainment, which I think a lot of people might not recognize that well, or maybe people out there do. But what other kind of games? Because you said yourself at the beginning, Tony, that PC gaming wasn't something you really got into. But what other types of PC games have you been into?
Me? Well, I played the Law and Order games. I played the Law and Order games the ones where you Detective Lenny Briscoe's partner, trying to find clues to solve a murder mystery. And I loved all three of them. It's one, man, this, like, because I didn't play PC gaming for a while, but then like Christmas came and we got a laptop computer, and so I got the two Law and Order games, and it was great. Like it was one big case, but it was definitely worth it, because like first you're trying to look for clues to try and find who the suspect is. Then you take him to court, and you gotta find the suspect guilty. And there were two of them, Law and Order Down the Money, trying to find the suspect who murdered this Wall Street broker while she was jogging. And the second one was this scientist who was shot and killed in his car. And then the third one is actually interesting, called Justice Serve. It's about the murder of this tennis player, Elena Kotarova, who was basically a parody of Anna Kournikova. And it's got sports. It's got the Sports Illustrated creator Patrick McEnroe in that game there, doing a little cameo in there. And you basically click around trying to solve puzzles, look for clues, get them into crime labs like that, or research them. And I also played Law and Order Criminal Intent, which was like a different one. That game had bugs in it left and right, but I still managed to beat it. I also still have
just to give a little context, what era, or I should say, what were the years that these games that you're talking about came out?
2003, 2004, 2005, 2006, and yeah, around there. But there was another game I played that a lot of people have made videos on YouTube and stuff. It was called The Movies by Lionhead Studios, called The Movies, and it basically a simulation tool where it has some strategy elements in it, but it's nothing like those strategy games I'm not a fan of. Like, where you can create your own movies with actors and stuff like that, and pick scenes to create. And you can add your own voices too. It is a fun game, but all that work you do, it almost make you feel like you're working at an unpaid job at that, because that's how much time you'll be putting into that. You'll be spending like a good amount of time making the movie, adding the voices, and like making sure everything goes right without the game crashing on you, because the game does have bugs to where like the game can freeze, it can crash, it has staff shortages and stuff too. So basically just get into the sandbox mode after you reach the 2000 area and unlock the year 2000 era. Then they release the expansion, the movies stunts and effects, where you have stunt doubles, or you can have your actors doing stunts in the games, and that's really cool there too. You can it shows them like escaping from burning buildings, flying on helicopters, and you can make it adds more to that. But the thing is, like, it's so much work. You're better off just finding a tool that puts you right into that stuff and make it easier. Which, like, I know but now that there's like better tools you could play and use. In fact, when it comes to the PC, that's how I first got to own Halo. I did play Halo on the Xbox with my friends before we had an Xbox, but I found out one day my brother had Halo on the PC, and we did play Halo on the PC, but the game did not run really well on our laptop, because it was the frame rate had the frame issues on our laptop and everything like that, and the graphics were not very good. Even with the PC requirements, the game still did not run the best. We also played the original Far Cry on there, which that was hard to run. But thankfully, I have it on the PS3 now, so that's good there. But like, it's just the problems with PC gaming, why I'm not a big fan, is like all those settings you have to do to get it to run right, and even like sometimes you'll have to restart the game just to get it to run right and stuff. And you shouldn't have to do that. I mean, you shouldn't have to do anything to do stuff like that. You shouldn't have to. But the thing,
I would say that honestly, though, it depends upon what era of PC gaming you're talking about.
Yeah, well,
because PCs today certainly run games better than the consoles do. Well, one could argue that the PS5 and the Xbox Series X are, because of how new they are faster than most PCs, as their actual graphics. I can't speak today. Their actual the power that's behind those PCs is the equivalent of a GeForce RTX 2080 Ti, and there are much faster graphics cards out there, now with the 30 series on the market. But most PCs that are out there are not as fast as a 2080 Ti. So, but I
But
will,
in the past, it was
in the
really
past,
cool to see a game on the computer.
yeah. I mean, PCs,
Especially games that are like really well made.
yeah,
Like one
PCs
of
in
my
general.
favorites back then was Roller Coaster Tycoon 2.
I remember playing it, could not get into it. It was basically a strategy game, and
All the SimCities.
oh, SimCity.
You know, and I know SimCity was on the Super Nintendo, and
I played SimCity
it was a good,
2000.
yeah, SimCity 2000 was a brilliant game back in the day. It sounds like a lot of the games that you played on the PC, Tony, were more puzzle type games that never made it to the consoles. Now, I just want to mention that, especially since say 2005, a lot of the same games that have been on the consoles have been on the PCs. And as time has gone on, especially with companies like Microsoft, more and more games are seeing multi-platform launches and are on multiple consoles and are on the PC. And today with Windows 10, you shouldn't have to do any of that playing around with settings. Everything should just automatically work for most people.
True.
And the fact that you can play with settings on the PC, because people like to overclock and people like to really push the limits of what a game and what PC hardware can do, it actually gives you more options when a game is on a PC. And I know we're not
if you can custom make your PC with the expensive high-end, high-processing parts.
Yeah,
like
and then you overclock them. Top tier stuff. Like right now, if you get like a Ryzen 9 with a GeForce RTX 3080 or a 3080 Ti, which is coming out soon, I mean that in and of itself, that is faster than even a PS5 and an Xbox Series X. Like those consoles can't even really touch the things that you can do with that PC. Now, that being said, let me just throw out some of my experience with PC gaming and how I got into it. And yes, when I was a little kid, I did have consoles. I had an Atari 7800, I had an NES, I had an SNES, and then a Genesis as I got a little older. But I had, I started before DOS was a huge PC platform. Now, when you say PC, all I hear is the word personal computer. And I know for most people, when they hear PC, you're referring to Windows 10 or even all the way back to Windows 95 and DOS gaming. But I started gaming before computers really were powerhouses in gaming. And that was in the early to mid 80s, back when the Apple IIe and the Macintosh and the Commodore 64 and the Amiga, when those computers were king, there still were DOS machines, IBM compatibles, which we now call PCs. They were around, and they did have games, but they weren't the powerhouses that they are today yet. But I even started my gaming back then on the Apple II. I was playing Ultima and Wizardry and Bard's Tale, and these are the RPGs that sort of became the basis for all modern RPGs. Not just Western RPGs, but also JRPGs. For example, Final Fantasy is based on Wizardry. The developers of Final Fantasy literally said, we have this huge booming Japanese video game market. Let's make an RPG. They played Wizardry, which was a Western-based RPG. They played Ultima, and then they designed Final Fantasy, which only came out a few years after. Because, Final Fantasy's from the 80s, Wizardry's from the 80s, Ultima actually is from the late 70s, and then through the 80s. So I think that's very interesting. And for me, I was playing a lot of my games on my Apple II, my 2GS, and my Commodore 64. Because the Commodore 64 literally has more games on it than any other platform that exists. It's got 6,000 to 10,000 games that were produced for it, and
Ooh,
that's
a lot.
crazy. Yeah, that's crazy, right? People still write games for the Commodore 64 because you can write them in BASIC and you can write them in another language called 6520 Assembler. And those are two languages that I learned when I was a kid. My brother kind of forced me to learn them. My brother is also, he's a programmer. He actually, believe it or not, Sadet, my older brother lives in Canada. He's lived there for 20 years. He works for the Canadian government. Even though he's from New England and grew up here like me, where I still am, but he went off and he got that job programming satellites for the Canadian government, and he's been there ever since. So he's now a Canadian. He's not. I guess you can be dual citizen. He's actually a citizen of all of North America. He married a really nice woman from Mexico. He was born and raised in the United States, and he immigrated to Canada for a job. So he's got Canadian citizenship, United States citizenship, and Mexican citizenship.
Wow.
So I think that's crazy that he's all three. He's got three
really
passports.
Impressive.
Wow.
Yeah, he's got all three passports too. But anyway, back to what I was saying. Because these languages are actually easy to use, and the amount of sprites that you have to program to make a C64 game are low, and there's not a huge color palette. It's easy to make games for it, so there's a lot of games. And it had equivalent, even though it was before the NES came out in the United States, it has equivalent graphics, I would say, to an NES. So definitely equivalent graphics. But just to kind of end this tangent I'm on, PC gaming, which became very popular in the later DOS era, really didn't hit its stride until the Intel 486 came out, which is the chip that came out before the Pentium. And that chip really accelerated the computer, the PC, past what any of the consoles could do. It was a 32-bit chip. It was a powerful chip, had a lot more power behind it than the previous Intel, IBM compatible chips. And it's what kind of like solidified the IBM compatible, the Intel based, and then later AMD, also AMD based PC as what the PC is going into the future.
But unfortunately, if your power went out, a lot of your progress went down the drain.
That's why
Because
lots of save points, didn't exist yet.
Didn't exist.
Autosave didn't really exist until Diablo 2 for the most part, right? Diablo 2 was really one of the first games that used autosave. But kind of moving into more of a modern era, and even though it's still going to be considered retro.
Anybody remember the Alienware computers? Anybody remember those?
Alienware still around. They are a division of Dell.
Yeah, I heard they have problems inside that, so it's just not the best to get.
Hey, as long as it's not a freaking Acer, we're good.
True.
Oh, I've had so much trouble with Acer laptops.
What's wrong with them? I never had them.
They try to make inexpensive laptops, and in building inexpensive laptops, they work inexpensively, if you know what I mean.
I'll just put this very simply. My very first computer I've owned, which was a Christmas gift from my parents, it was an Acer computer. It died less than a year.
Yeah.
Was it warranty, a manufacturer's warranty, or?
We had a warranty on it, but it just like flat out died after a year. Not even a year. Then we got a second Acer computer. That one died around a year. Do not get Acers, people. They are complete and utter total shit.
Build your own is what I always say.
And right now, talking about Acers, I'm seeing red.
You should forget about Acers
all
quickly.
Acers computers.
Acer, I think that their quality has gotten better over the years, definitely. They actually make good monitors, believe it or not, but yeah, I would not invest in a laptop or desktop from them. if you're looking for a good Taiwanese company that makes computers, because Acer is a Taiwanese company, Asus is much better.
Bless you.
And I have a lot of I have a lot of Asus motherboards that I used over the years, and they always did well for me. So, but they are another Taiwanese manufacturer like Asus. I just want to mention another big thing, another big era for PC gaming, another big jump for PC gaming is when the 3D accelerators started coming out. For example, in the mid-90s with the Voodoo cards, those really gave PCs... Voodoo Hoodoo. Those really gave PCs such a technological edge and jump over what consoles could do. Because when the Voodoo cards came out, especially the Voodoo 3, it was in the same time frame that the PlayStation 1 and the N64 was out.
Oh, nice.
And, yep, and those systems, even though the N64 was designed, it was designed by a company called Silicon Graphics Incorporated, and it was designed to do 3D. It couldn't push the type of 3D or the polygon counts that the Voodoo's cards could push.
I feel like we've talked about Silicon before, but I can't remember when.
But, so as time went on, those 3D cards evolved, and then those 3D cards got incorporated into consoles as well, which, the PS2 was a pretty powerful system when it launched. The original Xbox was a pretty powerful system when it launched. But getting back to the games, which is the heart of our conversation. For me, aside from those games that I played in the 80s as a little kid, a big era of PC gaming for me was the late 90s into the early 2000s. I'm just going to throw a couple names out for you. Warcraft 2, StarCraft, Brood Wars, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Icewind Dale 1 and 2, Diablo 2.
I knew you were going to say that one.
Yep. Those were huge, huge hits for me. And I put so many hours into those. And out of all of those, believe it or not, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 are two of my favorite games of all time, even considering the ones that I loved from when I was a really young kid back in the mid to late 80s.
Yeah.
And nothing's been able to reproduce those that well for me. Now, in recent years, I've been playing things like Divinity Original Sin 2, games from Larian, Baldur's Gate 3, and those are similar because they're based upon kind of the Baldur's Gate formula from 20 years ago. But, they don't capture that nostalgia, but they are incredible games. And for anyone out there...
If I recall, isn't Baldur's Gate also a D&D thing?
Yes, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and 3, yep, they were all based in Dungeons & Dragons worlds, and they used Dungeons & Dragons as the system on which you build your characters and combat and the items. Yep, it's all Dungeons & Dragons. And not the first Dungeons & Dragons games, mind you, because I was playing Dungeons & Dragons games all the way back to the first big Dungeons & Dragons game release, which was Pool of Radiance for the PC in 1988. And that was the first true Dungeons & Dragons game ever released for a system. And most of the Dungeons & Dragons games that have come out have always been for the PC. There have been a few that have come out for consoles. There was a Dungeons & Dragons game on the Genesis that was really good. It was kind of only a loose interpretation of the D&D rules, where the PC games were a much closer interpretation of the D&D rules. But I thought the Genesis game was really good.
Speaking of PC games, I heard what you said.
Go ahead, yeah.
I remember there was also a bunch of Star Wars games that I played as well.
Oh
on the PC.
yes,
like a bunch of them.
TIE Fighter, X-Wing, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. Those were the original '90s space combat sims.
Yeah,
go ahead. Oh yeah, I was just saying those are the original space combat sims, and then you go into like Shadow of the Empire and Knights.
Man, I
then
wish
you
we
have
would've
the
got-
RPGs.
I wish we
The
could have
RPGs.
I wish we would have got Shadow of the Empire on the PlayStation. That game I would have liked to see how that game ran on the PlayStation.
That was a great game. Two of the
KOTORs.
the KOTOR games, which are two of the highest rated RPGs of their era, which was the Xbox One, Windows XP era. Those games, people still love them. People still consider them a hit. And those games were on the PC and on the original Xbox. Those are what those came out for. And those are awesome games. And I wish they'd do remastered versions of them, but I guess we'll never get those.
Yeah, I mean, like, they did remaster Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy, so that'd be because
They did indeed, yep.
Yeah, and like because go ahead.
They even put them on the Switch. I was gonna say.
Yeah, because that was great because like the Xbox and GameCube ports of Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy were not very good in my opinion. I'll say that those ports were not very good. And
Sadet, so we haven't really heard a lot about what Sadet likes to play on the PC and what different era of PC games Sadet really loved. I just want to mention one other genre of PC games I always loved that didn't really make it to the consoles was the adventure games, like King's Quest, Space Quest, Quest for Glory, which are the real old ones by Sierra Online, and then Gabriel Knight, the LucasArts games, like the Monkey Island games.
Oh yeah, Escape from Monkey Island. Yeah, I have that game on PS2.
Yeah, exactly. And those got some ports later on, but that's kind of a genre that was like really popular on the PC, but not so much on console. And I really loved those games.
Don't forget the Broken Sword games.
Exactly.
I forgot to mention those.
Yeah, Broken Sword.
Yeah, I guess.
Yep, exactly. So, Sadet, tell us what's your type of PC game?
Well, I can't say that there's just one.
She likes a ton of
cannot
people.
Give us many then.
Okay, but we're gonna be here a while.
We got the time.
We got the time.
Well, there were the cereal boxes games. Used to play Candyland from a cereal box. Roller Coaster Tycoon 2 I got from a cereal box. Boggle.
Fun game.
Monopoly Junior was actually pretty fun. There was also Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
I
got some
Yes, I always loved that game.
Me too.
I used
with
to have
Regis
Freddy
in
the
it,
Fresh
right?
From there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And let's see. I used to have quite a few games that were from cereal boxes. Really miss those days. Those were some really good simple times.
Nowadays you would never see anything like that.
Yeah, those were some very nice simple times with simple way to get a prize from a box.
Good
You don't
time.
see that anymore.
No, you don't. Sad but
Which
true.
serials did you get the best games out of? That is my question.
Huh?
Which serials?
I always went for the ones that had the games I want, even if I wasn't a fan of that cereal. I mean, seriously. Back then, cereal was like, what? Only a few dollars back then? And just getting a game for a few dollars was like, sweet!
Yeah.
Well, cereal around here is still, I don't know, like $2 a box. But I can see Lil Sadet being like, I'll take that cereal, mommy. And then you get the cereal home, take the game out, pretend to eat the cereal while like dumping it for your dog or whoever, the cat to eat. Like, it's so good, mommy. It's so good.
I didn't do that part.
We're just
One,
joking.
I didn't have a dog, and two,
Right.
I cared enough for my pets to not to do that because I don't want them getting sick.
Oh, God. So if you're too afraid to give the cereal to your pet, you shouldn't eat it yourself.
Right.
My dad was usually the one that ate the cereal I didn't like.
Well, at least you had that, and it didn't go to waste. Definitely.
Nope.
But it was always nice when the game I wanted was in the cereal I did like. Sometimes when the cereals were on like the lower shelves that had the games, I would sit and try to dig through each one of my favorites just to see which one had the game I wanted.
Because, like, yeah, it was like nowadays you would never see that in cereal. That would never happen these days. Like there's just no
Yeah,
way.
these days it's like, hey, you want to win a pair of socks? Put in this code right here inside the box that you have to cut open, and then you have to go to this website, and then you go to this part of the site, and then you click in these letters that's on the box.
And
Overly
you think,
complicated
right?
for a pair of socks.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of like
And
it was a lot simpler. Going on topic here for a second, it's a lot simpler when you got the Hot Wheels Flintstone mobile to change cars. All you had to do was like cut off a part of the box and mail it to the post office, and then you had to wait for it to come in. That's all you had to do. But now it's like all complicated. But that's
yeah.
off topic. But yeah,
Well, they used to, a lot of those prizes used to require, say, multiple proof of purchases, meaning, you have to cut the barcode off of a bunch of the boxes to get whatever prize it is.
Yeah.
But you'd think that today it would be easier for them to do something like that because everything's done by code for the most part. Everything, most things have gone to digital distribution, so they don't need to put any type of physical media in the box anymore. Just
And yet
a
they
piece of paper
still
with a
figure out
code.
how to make it complex.
yeah. But we're kind of going off topic a little bit though. We're kind of going off topic.
Sorry.
We'll talk about cereal
But-
in like a different podcast. We'll talk about how a cereal talk in the future. That'll be fun. Like we'll have Rock talk about rocks and talk about cereal.
This week on
Miscellaneous
TTBurger.
talk.
Yeah. Cereal. What's your favorite? Anyway, Sadet, yeah, any like real favorites that you've played over the years, and it doesn't have to be just one. You don't have to pick just one. Like you could have a couple, like I did.
Like, I have had a lot from the cereal boxes, but I was mostly into the consoles up until I learned about MMORPGs. My very first one that I've played was Adventure Quest Worlds.
Lucky guess there. I know you like Venture Quest. I also had a feeling that was gonna be a lucky guess there. But like
It was a very charming web browser MMO,
ah.
which that and another MMO I used to play on the web browser back when that was a thing was RuneScape. That was
Yeah.
another one of my first MMORPGs.
Sadet and I had a little talk about that yesterday, and I remember RuneScape. I could never get into RuneScape. I thought RuneScape was so boring. It could probably cure insomnia or cure watching paint dry and stuff like that. In my opinion, it was almost as boring. It was almost as boring as real-time strategy games. And yes, I plan on making a video about why I don't like strategy games, but yeah, it's almost as boring as strategy games. Yeah.
And you better make sure I'm not there when you do that video, or else I'll be hammering into you about how good they can actually be.
I know we had this talk last night to that, and I know, but like just that, yeah, you'll find out why. You'll find out why. It'll probably be video why I don't like RTS games or stuff like that. It'll probably be, and it'll just be like one of those things, like how 10 reasons why this or that or so, which I'm looking forward to doing. In the future.
Anyways,
Go ahead.
continuing on.
Mhm.
Then I used to play Fly for Fun, which was an MMO that you download. And it wasn't bad. It had its charms. I did like the design of the wings for flying. Even though they can be stupidly expensive. Technical difficulties. We'll be right back. We're back.
Yeah, let us continue there.
Sadet the Hyperactive Princess for you, everyone.
Anyways, I've played quite a few. Give me a second to actually bring some of the ones I download on Steam up. because I didn't expect that I'd be going through them.
Mhm.
Did you ever play any of the Star Wars ones?
No, never been into Star Wars.
Understandable.
Yes, and now is certainly not the time to
Let's
get into it,
see.
as it's been destroyed.
Huh,
How true that is.
just like the Empire, huh?
Uh-huh.
That is true. She does have a point.
Hey, just because I'm not into Star Wars doesn't mean I don't know a thing or two.
Of course,
That
of
is-
course.
That is true.
Anyways, I used to play Tree of Saviors, which was a very cute MMORPG that you can get on Steam. And I'll be honest with you, I went healer into necromancer.
What a switch.
Yep.
That's like
My
you start off as
class
a good
was
guy.
a healer. Then I pretty much upgraded the class all the way into necromancer.
You start off as the good guy and end up as the bad one. You know what's that? You know that Batman quote? Either die the hero or live long enough to be the villain.
Yeah,
That's what you did.
pretty much.
Yep.
The most interesting thing is that healers are not your typical heal bots. Heal.
Heal.
The healing spell actually creates, like, panels on the floor that if players step on them, they get healed. But if enemies step on them, they get damaged.
Huh. That's different. Kind of cool, yeah.
Most of the
What-
enemies were undead, so makes sense.
What did you think of that system?
I thought it was cool and unique. It was
Yeah.
also sprite-based, kind of like Ragnarok Online, but the music was a lot better IMO. There's even vocal songs in the game, if you know where to look.
Cool. And what years was that game out?
Give me a second. Tree of Savior. Release date. Its international release was on March 28th, 2016. I will admit the game did have some problems, like it wasn't very clear on where you should go for certain things. But other than that, it's a really nice game. And speaking of Ragnarok Online, I actually used to play Ragnarok Online, and I don't know what it was with people, but whenever I was like, if you have any junk, I could take it off your hands, and they just throw, like, so many different things at me that weren't even junk. Like,
Well-
I was just trying to be the helpful, sweet dancer class in Ragnarok Online. Just being like, hey, do you have any junk that you don't need anymore?
That's funny.
I could get rid of them for you. And I just, like, get, like, this cash shop item, these rare cards, this powerful sword, and people just kept throwing stuff on me, just kept throwing money on me. And pretty much it was just crazy. I was like, in real life, but in game, I was being sweet and polite and going, thank you very much. Well,
Could it have been just like a lot of duplicate stuff that they had?
probably duplicate stuff, probably stuff they actually didn't need or want anymore.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Or some of it could have been guy being like, oh hey, female player, female character.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I know. Me. That's like me, and I always like to play as female characters in video games. Yeah, that's
There
that.
is no doubt that does happen.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
It is a
That
real
actually-
phenomenon.
That has happened to me in Ragnarok Online. Almost every day in that game.
Almost every day. Remember that, people.
Yep.
But yeah, like
Did you
But
get married in Ragnarok Online?
not sure. But when I played that game, I was with another group of friends, and I was always the one getting attention from randos. So I ended up being the one providing everybody with items.
nice.
All because
That's terrible.
I was a female.
Were your friends like, hey, go talk to that dude over there. He looks rich.
Nope.
Hey.
Nope. Just I stand in front of the most populated town. People just, when I ask if they have any items they wanted to get rid of, boom.
Boom.
Hey, and all you did was ask. You didn't offer anything. That was all up to them to give up those items. You did nothing but ask, so it's not on you.
In fact, I can't believe I forgot to talk about this series. The Army Men franchise started up on the PC. I can't believe I forgot to mention Army Men.
It did, but it had PS1 and
Yes, I know.
GameCube
I have them.
releases.
I have all the PS1 games except for RTS, but I have them all on there. Expect a review of those in the future, just letting you know.
Those were
Another
they were
MMO.
cool.
Another MMO I remembered I used to play was La Tale.
I never heard of it.
It's a very interesting designed game. It's kind of like a Maple Story in the way you move about, but it's its own thing.
If anything, like, did you ever play any of those like simulator games, like Flight Simulator, Ship Simulator, or Bus Driver Simulator, or Train Simulator? You ever play any of those?
I used to
Simulator
play
games I played were usually farming simulators, like Harvest Moon.
Like Harvest. Yeah, I remember you telling me about Harvest Moon. I mean, I played some simulator games on there. I mean, they're fun, but after a while, you see everything they have to offer, and just it kind of it's kind of a turn off. I mean, we did have. I remember playing Flight Simulator '96 at my cousin's house, and I thought it was pretty cool. But then you realize there's no really game to it. It's just simulates you how to fly, and that's what it is. It's just like
Well, I used to
Anyways,
play the combat one.
wait, one at a time.
another MMO that I played at a point but fell out of really quickly was Terra. I fell out of that one pretty quickly, unfortunately. Won't deny that they had some really beautiful designs
No
from
Eve
what
Online.
I have played.
Did you ever try Eve Online?
No, haven't heard of that one. But
It
I've
was another
also,
sci-fi.
but
MMO.
anybody that has seen my channel would definitely know the one I tend to play, Mabinogi. But I mostly just play it just because I'm really into the music stuff in Mabinogi, and pretty much I'm one of the best bards there is. In terms of music anyways. I do not settle for anything less than perfection. It gets very stressful sometimes, especially when some players are either overplaying me, how disrespectful, or they
What do you mean
just
they overplay?
won't listen when I'm trying to organize things. Overplay, it means pretty much if you're playing a song and somebody else runs up and plays something completely different over you.
Oh,
It is
actually,
very rude and very disrespectful.
oh, I understand. Actually, playing over you, that is rude. Jesus.
And
People
there's
do that?
players out there that do that with either a score that isn't actually music, but just like
They're just trying to make disruptive sounds to screw up
pretty
your,
much.
That's terrible.
And
Rude.
because of that, I ended up with a small reputation for being easily angered
Well,
when it comes
those
to
are
music.
those are things
And
that you should be angry over.
I used to scold those people a lot.
Can't say I blame you.
Like, some of them that overplayed realize, oh shit, I messed up. Some of them were respectful and pretty much started like learning how to be a more polite bard, to put it mildly.
Understood.
Well, you get the assholes that will just play their irritations no matter what.
Well, it sounds like they were kind of, in many ways, just kind of trolling you. You know what I mean?
Well,
Just to
then
play
again, who
to play
wouldn't
random
want-
songs.
Who wouldn't troll somebody as skilled as I when it comes to working on music in Mabinogi?
It's jealousy. That's what it comes down to. It was all jealousy. They wanted to ruin your set, so they run up and just
don't
play
let
gibberish.
this tone of voice fool you. I am not doing this just to be a pompous windbag. I am extremely confident in my skill.
Oh, we believe it. We believe you are.
We believe it, yeah.
Any other MMOs, or Tony? Did you play any MMOs?
I remember...
I-
Well, go ahead, let Sadet talk first, then I'll talk.
I know that there's one more, but just give me a second to find the name of it.
I'll talk in the meantime then. But like, thing is that I didn't really play MMOs because I'm not really big into playing online and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not big into playing online. I mean, I'm fine with playing bots and stuff because it's just online games just never really interest me. Because when I was a kid, I knew of multiplayer as like playing with people in your room or something, or playing against bots. I mean,
Co-op.
Yeah, co-op or like just playing as bots by yourself.
Oh, I said coach, but couch co-op.
Yeah.
I said coach co-op.
Yep, that's true.
Anyways, I found the name of one of the others that I've played. Raiders of Icarus.
Raiders of Icarus. I've actually heard of it.
Sounds familiar.
It's actually not a half bad MMO. It's very unique in terms that a lot of the wild creatures you can tame to be your mount.
So you can actually basically farm your own mount.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. There are mounts that are locked to the cash shop, but it's also kind of a grindy game in terms of getting mounts, because it's like, hey, you need to get this mount, turn it into a crystal, get a few more of that one to turn it into this item to tame this thing. Or you have to do this dungeon several times in hopes you get the item that's needed, or you have to do this quest and hope to get the item that's needed to tame this mount. But other than the grindy parts, it's actually pretty fun. And I used to play in the server that was known for constantly winning the server wars, because there's actually a section in the game itself where the different servers of the games go at war with each other.
Was that
So
done
it's pretty much a
in
server
arena
versus
style? Or
not an arena, it's more like, if I'm remembering this correctly, you have to try to take hold of a certain crystal and get it to the other side of the area before the other opponents try to attempt to steal the crystal and get it to where it needs to go.
Oh, a capture the flag type game.
Like kind of like
If
Return
I'm
Fire.
remembering correctly.
Kind of like Return Fire.
If I'm remembering correctly,
it sounds like
because it's been a long time.
Yeah. It sounds
But
like
I do remember that pretty much my whole group that was playing there, we were constantly winning on that server.
Yeah, Tony, that's it's called a capture the flag type mode. Sorry, a capture the flag mode.
That's the kind of game Return Fire was like. I was never big into it, but like if we're talking about PC games, there's one game that we have to
And
there's one game that we have to talk about that we know sucks ass. There's one game we have to talk about. Big
What?
Rigs Over the Road Racing, made by Stellar Stone.
Oh, no one's gonna even know what that game is.
I also used to play Spiral Knights.
Oh yes, Fire Knights. I
Well,
remember.
And one that I have been also playing quite a bit alongside Mabinogi is Fantasy Star Online 2,
oh
I was
yeah.
which
gonna.
honestly I like. I
I was
really
just
like
gonna.
this game.
I was gonna mention. I just want to give like just a minute here rundown of the MMOs I played. Um, so the first MMO I ever played was a game called Ultima Online, which was back in the late '90s, and it was one of the first uh, kind of like really heavily one of the first MMOs that used actual like graphics. It wasn't one of the, there are MMOs that date back to the 1970s, but those were all text-based. This was one of the first MMOs that actually used graphics. Now there was a like MMO from the early 90s on America Online called Neverwinter Nights, which was also based on Dungeons and
I've heard of that
Dragons.
game.
Yes. There's been multiple Neverwinter Nights games, but this was the original one on America Online, and that was technically the first graphical MMO, but it didn't have it didn't have like 3D graphics like Ultima Online did. So after Ultima Online, my next MMO was actually Phantasy Star Online for the Dreamcast. Not number 2. I'm talking about the original one that came out for the Dreamcast that you had to use the modem to dial into Sega servers and play. And like, we loved that game. We played so much of that game. I remember when that came out, people were going crazy over that, because the Dreamcast itself, all Dreamcasts had internal modems in them. So when you bought a Dreamcast, it came with the modem. So, you plugged it in and you played. And, I did play a little bit of Phantasy Star Online 2, which originally came out for the original Xbox. And of course, it's been re-released now. It's on the PC, it's on the Xbox One, and it's a remastered version of it. And I think it's a lot of fun. So if you haven't played Phantasy Star Online 2, the current one, get out there, play it, everyone. It's easy, and it's free. It's free. So.
Eh, I never really cared for Fantasy Stars. I don't know what to say about that there, but we're almost here at the 1 hour marker, so might as well just like let's talk about that awful Big Rigs Over the Road Racing by Stellar Stone. I'm sure people know about that game. You've seen AVGN's review, you've seen reviews about it online by Army21 and other people. I'm mentioning this because we're talking about PC gaming here, and I have played that game. I myself was a victim of that game. I was a
Never
victim.
played it. Never played it myself. I have seen the AVGN episode. Sadet, have you heard of the game or seen the episode?
AVG?
No,
AVGN?
Big Rigs Over the Road Racing. Have you ever heard of that game?
Nope.
Oh well, let me give you a little rundown. If you've never heard of it. Big Rigs Over the Road Racing was a game made by a company called Stellar Stone. The game promised to have like 4 big trucks and cabs racing, delivering your cargo to a destination on time while avoiding the cops. When it was all a big lie. Basically, it's a very very bad racing game with semi truck cabs in it and stuff, and this game is considered one of the worst games, not the worst game of all time. I have played the game. I was a victim of a physical copy, and I'll tell you this here, people. Why? I'll tell you this. People never heard of the game. First off, like the opponent AI doesn't move. It doesn't move at all unless you install a patch or whatever. The opponent AI does not move. And there's basically no, like basically you'll win the race and get the famous "your winner" screen all the time, and you can't die or win a race. You can't crash into anything. You just basically just go. You can drive through anything in the game. You can drive through buildings, drive through rocks, drive through boundaries, or drive through scenery in the background, and you can just run through everything. And yeah, and you can also there's also a funny thing where you can actually just go off the map and float in midair, or just clip through to just go off the scenery and stuff like that. And when
It
you
sounds like they forgot to add collision.
well, here's the funny thing is that like there's
Sounds
so
like they forgot to finish the game.
there are so many ways to make the game crash. Two of the three courses will make the game crash. Night Ride and Small Town Road. Small Town Road will run sometimes, but Night Ride doesn't run unless you install a patch, which basically just looks like Forgot. It's just pretty much like Devil Passage 1. It's Devil Passage 1, Devil Passage 2, Forgotten Road 1, Night Ride, and Small Town Road. Night Ride would look the coolest in the picture. It looks like a city, but it's just basically a mirrored version of Devil Passage.
When
And
was this game made?
about 2003 or so like that. 2003, 2004. I think it was 2003. I think. Like it wasn't even that old. It wasn't even even that old when I first learned about it. I learned about 2008. It was just yeah, and like all the pictures in the back were live and everything like that, and just it was just so bad. Like here's the funny thing: when you win a race, the checkpoint points double, and you can't finish the race. Or, let's take it back, when you quit a race and try to go into another course, the checkpoints will double, so you can't even win the race, and the checkpoint usually just disappear. Or, after you win a race, you just win automatically over and over again. And, like, it was just basically considered the worst game, one of the worst PC games of all time, or one of the worst games of all time in general. It actually got ranked number 1 on the most frightfully bad games on GameSpot's top 10 list back in 2003. And, yeah. Rebel Trucker Kajun Blood Money, a game that was also pretty bad, is considered more playable than that. And
Since we're on the topic of the PC games, have anybody here emulated any games?
no, I don't believe in emulators. I just like physical copies of games, just having the disc and playing them. That's how I make all my reviews and stuff like that. I don't care for emulators.
I use a lot of emulators just because they save space, and constantly having to worry about upkeeping hardware or making sure hardware works or having all the different wires and connections you need to go into a retro tank and all that stuff.
I
just don't want to
agree
do
with
it.
you there, Grim.
Yeah. It's just too much. And I have a lot of hardware. I just have it all in boxes.
And sometimes just buying the old games
is awfully expensive.
$2,000-$3,000 for a game is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, certain games are very expensive these days, but still, I prefer.
Which is why I feel that if companies are not going to re-release the games in some way, shape, or form, like putting it on Steam or something for a decent price, then I feel like emulators should be okay to use for these old games that aren't going to be put on anything anymore. It's the newer games or games that are getting planned re-releases that should be the iffy spots.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'm not going to defend any of these companies, but I will say that sometimes games get caught up in IP copyright hell, meaning that multiple people will own, multiple people and multiple companies will own portions of an IP or a copyright or a trademark to a certain game, and because none of them agree on like how to distribute it or who's going to get what money or anything like that, or they don't even agree on who really owns it, the game can't get re-released because of kind of like that IP battle over the game. And unfortunately it happens, and it's not every case in why a game doesn't get re-released, but it's in some cases why certain games and even franchises don't get a remaster or re-release, and we just call that copyright or IP hell. And that's where some of these games sit. And then the only way to experience it, is like you said, you get a ROM or an ISO, and you play it under an emulator, and it's the only way. And look,
And not everybody has the money to rebuy those old systems and games.
right, and even some people who do have the money, they don't want to deal with the hardware. They don't have the space. It takes a lot of space. So if you enjoy games across kind of like a wide variety of systems, or even personal computers over the years, you can't possibly have a room with all of those systems and all those computers set up and maintain all of that. And it's just not like realistic, you know? I mean, if you're a fan of one particular system, because I know, Tony, you're a big PS1 fan,
Yep.
you know, that's one thing where you have your PS1 in your room and you have all your PS1 games and you really concentrate on that. And just keeping a PS1 or a PS2 that can play PS1 games up and running and installed on one CRT and keeping all your games together. I mean, that's pretty easy, but, you know, people who have fond memories of multiple systems, it becomes more difficult, a lot more money and a lot more time consuming and takes up a lot more space. So therefore emulators just become the more optimal solution, you know. A lot of people just don't want to hold on to a lot of stuff. You know, they like having like clean, open, non-cluttered rooms just with a few
And
things.
some people have like multiple different hobbies.
Yep.
So of course not everything's going to fit.
Yeah, not everything's going to fit. And to have like one computer and just a bunch of different, you know, controllers and joysticks, and me able to just use that one computer and just click and play one of any of 10,000 different games on over 200 systems and computers. All I have to do is change my input device, but I'm using the same monitor, same TV, same computer. I mean, that's just a huge space and time saver, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying your perspective is wrong, Tony. I'm just kind of justifying my, you know, why I think the way I do, and I think I'm also kind of justifying a little bit for Sadet as well, because she sounds like you're agreeing with me.
Yep.
Why we think emulators are such a good thing.
It's just a shame that certain companies out there don't really see it that way, when we're kind of making a good point on why they're actually a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's why, as they say, I'm sure
And
you've
plus-
heard this.
And plus, if you have a long-running series like, say, Final Fantasy, for example, but you don't have... the company did not re-release every single game, and you don't have the old systems for those games, then I don't see what the issue with an emulator is.
Yeah, and there's another cool thing that's out there, and it's called ROM hacks. It's when people will take old games like Final Fantasy, and
Or even Pokemon, which is one of the popular ones.
Yeah, exactly. But so many ROM hacks for Pokemon, and they take them and they do things to them that Nintendo would never allow the community to do, and they make like fun and cool things into the game.
Hey,
and change the
Grim.
game around. Yep.
I just thought of something here. Remember Sega's old little thing?
The Game Gear?
I'm going to switch their old lineup. The fans do what Nintendo don't.
Oh, right. Their slogan, the old Sega slogan. Right. It's true. And ROM hacks are definitely cool. But, you know, hey, if a company's not going to let something get re-released, if they're just not going to give fans or players what they want, you know the old saying, sail the high seas to get it, if you know what I'm saying. Sail the high seas to get it. Do we all understand?
Yes, we do.
You're such a pirate.
Arby mateys.
Exactly. It's true.
Very.
So, I guess any other... What else we have on some PC gaming? It sounds like Sadet really loves the MMOs. I've loved so many different things on the PC, from RPGs to simulators SimCities to
I'm very
4X race
grateful.
games.
Well,
I'm very grateful to programs like Steam because I can get access to certain games on the computer that would be otherwise impossible, on top of it being easier to re-download games you buy.
Yeah. And
On Steam.
GOG as well, who you can get. I mean, GOG does carry a lot of new games, but they have so many old classic DOS games on GOG, and the great thing about running these old games on GOG and Steam is that you can buy a game that came out in 1988. So let's say I buy, I'd mentioned Pool of Radiance, one of the Dungeons and Dragons games earlier that came out on DOS. You can buy that on GOG and Steam, and it's all ready to go. They have it in DOSBox. All you do is download it, click it, and it runs under Windows 10. It's already configured. You don't have to set up your own DOSBox or you don't have to set up your own emulation software. It's all included in the game, in the release that you paid for, which is really a bonus to getting those games on Steam, on GOG, and even the Epic Store if they end up ever putting older games on there, which I don't think that they have. But, it's one of the advantages of being able to get games off that. But hey, and even if you can't get a game off there and you have to sail the high seas to get it, I mean, there are pretty good directions out there on the internet, on Reddit, on YouTube, on how to set up things like DOSBox and other emulators to get the games.
yeah. Of course, like, we never really mentioned Doom or Wolfenstein in them, but those games have been
Those
talked
are
about.
obvious.
Those are obvious. We don't really need to talk about those, or Quake or any of them, so yeah, there was no point to talk about the first shooters.
I will say this. Doom is pretty funny because it can be put on anything now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
PlayStation,
I remember,
everything.
I remember seeing Doom run on a TI-84 graphing calculator. I remember seeing.
I think I saw one being run on a pregnancy test thing. Of all things.
I'm waiting for games on blood sugar test meters.
I would really love to see what other games, if the source codes ever get released, could get put on.
Yeah. But,
Just
yeah.
random things, But yeah, hey, I've always loved first-person shooters, and that's one of the genres that I usually played on the PC over consoles, and over the last few years, yes, I've played quite a few first-person shooters on console. I even played Skyrim on Xbox One over the PC, although I've since got it on PC for the mods. But, starting all the way back at Doom and Wolfenstein and then into Quake and in 05, when Crysis came out. Oh, I just want to mention that when you kind of hit 05, that's when a lot of games started getting simultaneously released for Windows and consoles at the same time. So take for example Crysis, which is a pretty famous first-person shooter. At least the first one is. The other two were okay, but that game was really popular on the PC and really popular on Xbox 360. So it basically was released at the same time, and you saw a lot of games doing that. Oblivion came out for the PC and the 360, and then later the PS3 as well, and it was popular in all of them as well. The same with Skyrim, and you can even, with RPGs, you can even go back to 2003, I think was when Morrowind came out, and Morrowind, which was, could not run on the PS2 because the PS2 was not powerful enough to run it, but it did run on the original Xbox, so it released for the original Xbox and for the PC at the same time. So that's interesting how that kind of evolution happened. With now we get to the point where so many games, in fact, a vast majority of games, get a Steam/GOG release and a console release. Look at Resident Evil Village, which just came out.
Yeah.
That literally that released on everything. Steam,
Everything but your grandmother's sink.
everything but my grandma. Hey, you know what? My grandmother's sink did a lot, but it didn't run games. So you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
And now we're at the point where I guess the last thing that I want to say about this is we're at the point where the consoles that exist now are PCs.
Yeah.
The hardware that's in the PS5, that was in the PS4, the Xbox One, the Xbox Series X, they're literally just AMD PCs. They're running the same chips that are in all of the PCs. It's called the x86 architecture. I'm sure you've all heard of it.
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So all of these consoles are x86 consoles, and all of the PCs are x86 PCs. So it's like everything is slowly just becoming one, and then eventually we're just going to all end up with cloud gaming anyway.
That'll be the future of game for sure.
I hope not, but I know it's probably the truth.
Yeah.
And
And PCs will be looking at consoles going, unlike you consoles, I can become anything I wish.
Right. But part of that is a software
Anyone
problem.
that gets what I was referencing points to you guys. I'll link what I'm referencing in this chat later.
Okay. But yeah, like, I don't really have much else to say about PC games. It's like, just that, me not being a big PC gamer, I knew it wasn't going to be much to say, but Grim and Sadet are big PC gamers, so that's how I knew that they were going to talk much. Next episode will actually be a follow-up. We're going to talk about PC mods, and this was going to be one big episode, but just like, we'd be here forever talking about, because they're both big topics, so we'd be here forever. But next episode...
Yeah, because pretty much talking about the PC is like, you!
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, and I could do an episode just talking about Skyrim mods.
Mods in general stuff will be big, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that's what it's gonna be like. But like, it was definitely really fun here to do. Definitely looking forward to the next episode. Which was episode 7. Episode 8 will be about PC mods, which I don't know much about mods, so they'll be the guests will be doing most of the talking here. But I know of them and stuff. I just never really downloaded or used any mods or anything like that. So yeah. But that'll be the next episode of TTBurger Burger Shake on PC mods. I hope you're all doing well. Stay tuned because for more videos as well. I just finished the Road Rash series that's recording. And next up, no, I don't want anyone to spoil the answer here. The next episode will be a 6-part review. It'll be, and your only hint is blank for blank. That's all you're getting. Anyone have a guess? Comment down below. If not, then
I know
yeah.
what it is. It is.
Don't say. Don't say
Okay,
anything.
why did my auto sensor go off?
I had no idea, but but yeah, like that's your only hint, blank for blank. Which all we gotta say. Now, the fields are sealed. Be sure to subscribe to Grim Monolith and Sadet The Hyperactive Princess YouTube channel as well, because they make great content. So be on the lookout. We're still posting videos here and there, so be on the lookout for that. Which all we gotta say is it's Tony, Sadet The Hyperactive Princess, Grim Monolith. Peace now. And take care,
Happy
everybody.
gaming!
Happy gaming to everybody. Yes, happy gaming.